Time. Good morning, judges and everyone. Thank you so much for having me here today. My name is Matt Saperstone. I'm with Nila Coffee. We're based in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. We really love East African coffees, as I'm sure everyone does. However, at Nila, we roast a fair share of it, but it's not our main thing. We mostly focus on lesser known and underrepresented origins from usually Southeast Asia and that part of the world. We do a lot of Myanmar and Thai coffees, and sometimes when we can get some Vietnam, Papua New Guinea, if we can find some really good coffees from that part of the world. But so I'd say as far as roasting Rwandan coffees, not necessarily something that we had a ton of experience in, but based on the higher density of this coffee, the moisture content, we had some Ethiopian coffees that we had roasted before, so we were able to get a good gauge of some data to at least start with some of our sample roasting. So my goals here were to produce a beautifully sweet, bright, and of course very balanced coffee. As a buyer and a roaster and a cafe owner, I feel like I have a pretty broad perspective in coffee. We're always engaging with a number of different kinds of coffee drinkers. And so we're always focusing on sweetness and balance. It's really our big focus. We want to reach as wide of an audience as possible, and we want to make very tasty specialty coffee available and accessible to as many folks that would like to have it. We roast on a 10 kilogram Mill City. For this coffee, we were roasting. I have access to an Ikawa, but so we just use that for some sample roasts. So we used our 10K Mill City for this coffee. We roasted it in 4-pound batches. So as you could probably imagine, fairly small batches relative to what I like to do, which is about a 6 kilogram batch for our production roasts on it. So it took a little configuring of some gas settings and trying to get the right thermodynamic energy in the drum for this. Our first batch was definitely a little fast and a little short. Didn't quite bring out some of the juicy acidity and the sweetness that we were looking for. So we tweaked some slightly lower charge temps and a little less energy, a little less gas pressure. Our next few roasts were maybe slightly longer than we were looking for, maybe a little bit too long in the yellowing in my yard, and it came out a little flat. We weren't getting the sweetness and the balance that we really wanted as well. So ultimately, we decided to start with a pretty low charge temperature. We went with about 375 degrees Fahrenheit. We had a pretty low gas setting to start. We did a soak up until about right before the turning point for this coffee. And then we increased our gas significantly by more than double what we started it at, which is still lower than what we would normally use for this, for our roast. Around 55% of the way through the roast is where we started to slowly reduce our gas pressure bit by bit. I filled out this form as practice for everything. Sorry if it's too much information for you. So we slowly started to reduce our gas pressure systematically throughout until right before first crack, which occurred for us around 374 degrees Fahrenheit. We noticed during some of our sample roasts that this coffee lost a lot of energy very fast right after first crack. So we did a little bit of a dip in our gas pressure right before first crack, and then we kicked it up again right after first crack. We thought this helped with a little more of a steady release in energy during what is a really crucial phase of the roast. The roast in total lasted about 8 minutes and 40 seconds, and we dropped it at 386 degrees Fahrenheit. We did notice some inconsistencies in the green as far as size and density were concerned, but we did decide not to sort pre-roast, as it's not something we typically do unless we feel that there's a need for it. We did, however, do a good amount of post-roast sorting, as we found a good number of Quakers and other inconsistently roasted beans throughout. I think in the end, we had a nice, juicy, bright, balanced, and sweet coffee with a medium body and an enjoyable finish. In our fragrance and aroma, we got notes of some subtle orange blossom. We had chocolate, a little bit of nuttiness, and a hint of baking spice on the nose. On the palate, we tasted some nice, juicy citrus, grapefruit, a a little dried cherry fruit, and almost like a chocolate cake. There was a nice subtle body to it that coated your mouth, but nothing too intense. The coffee had a nice kind of brown sugar sweetness and a little subtle black tea note on the finish. Thank you very much for your time, and that is all.
All right, let's hear it from Matt Saperstone from Nila Coffee in Philadelphia, PA.